Today, I am privileged to be speaking with Andrew Nuttall, who is a financial advisor with Nuttall Ltd. Over the next few minutes, Andrew will share financial insights with us so we can realize greater success in wealth. So Andrew, thank you for being with us today.
Thanks, Karen.
So all of us want to be successful with our money. What are you seeing people do these days?
Well, that's a good question, Karen. I think a number of things, but first of all, frequently people don't take enough time to really, for their own benefit, and think carefully about their decisions, all right? And so by not thinking carefully, therefore they might be inclined to rush things and therefore not make good decisions, all right?
Okay.
Other areas, it might be some time before they've had a really good look at their tax position. Are they paying too much tax, right? Have they reviewed some of their insurance policies? Right? Are they still relevant for them? Are there some things that need to be looked at in terms of protecting their wealth? Some people might have family trusts that have been in existence, but they don't really know what they're doing and why they're there. All right? And then sometimes it can be really helpful for people to think sort of with the end in mind too, and sort of go right to the end of their life and contemplate who needs to be looked after. Does anybody need to be looked after? What is their legacy plan? And it's not necessarily just around money, but it can be around those things that are very important to them, and those attitudes and concepts, those things, messages that they want to leave to future generations or their communities. So
how should people go about dealing with each of these areas?
Well, I think initially they've really got to have a good look at where they're at, where they see themselves, or where they'd like to be, and identify, are there any gaps? And at the same time, they also perhaps need to look at who their professional team is. Are there existing advisors, well positioned to help them, perhaps in their next stage in life? Because we find that often when people first come to us, there's a transition going on in their life, right? It might be that there's been a separation or a death of a spouse, all right? Or maybe there's a plan to sell a business or a farm or some other significant event in their life. And therefore they really need to take some time there and recognise that there are three phases. First of all, phases is really just reflecting that this is a change and there's no going back from that change. Secondly, they need to then give themselves some time. This is the phase where they've got to contemplate some things and almost give themselves permission where they don't have to make any big decisions for some time, all right? And then thirdly, once they're through that into phase 3, then they're in a better position then to start the planning, and they're in a better position to make those good decisions.
So how does one start on that path?
Well, because there are so many things going on in people's lives and everybody's situation is unique. So we've found it best to use a very systematic process where we'll start by what we call our discovery meeting, and we'll ask a whole lot of questions around 7 different areas. Now, some of those questions could be around what's really important to them, what are their core values, all right? What's their current situation? What are their assets? How is their income likely to change in the future? Where's their income coming from now? Where's it going to come from in the future? Look at those people that are important to them. It might be children, grandchildren, could be elderly parents. What sorts of things do they need to be mindful of for those people? What are their interests now? What would they like their interests to be? All right? How do they best like to work with people? Because we find it best to work in a very consultative process. So once we're doing that, we can then get a good clear idea of what's important, where they are, where they see themselves, and then start together working with them and other experts or professional advisors to develop a strategy to help them to get those steps. Right.
So what would you recommend is the first step a person should take?
Well, we've found over the years, we've found it very helpful to offer people what we call a second opinion. So we provide a second opinion service, and people can come in and we'll put aside an hour or so, and we can then go through our discovery meeting that I described earlier. We can look at where they're at, where they'd like to be, where the gaps are, who are the people there that can help them. And if one of sort of three things that can happen, it might be that they're already on track with their existing advisors, all right? And we can support that and say, that's good, you're going well, you're in the right space. It might be that there are some gaps, but because we don't work with everybody, we can't, because we're only going to engage with people where we believe we can add some real value. So it might be situations that there are some gaps, but then we can point them in a direction and say, you should go and talk to that person because they're the best to help you in that area. Or thirdly, there might be some things that we've identified that we can help them with, and we can begin that process for them if that's appropriate. At that spot. So there's our second opinion service. It's a good way to start, very consultative approach. There's no pressure, we can just have a talk and explore, are there some areas where we can add some value?
All right, that makes sense. Thank you. Thank you so much for coming and sharing with us today.
Okay.